and welcome to the April the 15th, 2021 board meeting. Hope everyone is doing well. At this time now, I'll ask Mr. Jeff Lewis if he would do our invocation, please.
Thank you, Lord, for the remedies that have come out so far, and Father, we just pray that they work well and that we heal as a nation. Lord, we just lift up our staff here at GDOT, keep them safe, and Lord, bless this time that we have this meeting, and that all we do glorifies your name. In Christ's name we pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Lewis. At this time, we have our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And this time, I'd like to welcome everyone and also present and those who are by phone. And at this time now, we will have a roll call. And Kristen, if you would please go ahead and call the roll.
Yes. District 1, Ms. Purcell. Present. District 2, Mr. Floyd.
Present.
District 3, Mr. Carricker.
Present.
District 4, Mr. Brown.
Present.
District 5, Ms. Key.
Present.
District 6, Mr. Abel.
Here.
District 7, Mr. Bowen.
Present.
District 8, Mr. Golden.
Here.
District 9, Ms. Dunn.
Here.
District 10, Mr. Boswell.
Here.
District 11, Mr. Lewis.
Here.
District 12, Mr. Morris.
Here.
District 13, Ms. Lemon.
Here.
And District 14, Mr. Sharon.
Here.
Thank you. At this time now, we will approve the minutes from the March board meeting. I'd like to ask for a motion. We have a motion. We have a second. Any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
At this time now, I will ask Mr. Albert Shelby to come forward, program delivery, and ask for a motion on the approval of the May letting.
So good morning, Mr. Chair,
Thank
Commissioner,
you.
members of the board. I'm here to present the projects the department is proposing to advertise in the May 2021 letting. So before we present May, here are the FY 2021 results. We have let a total of 290 projects. This chart shows the number of projects by improvement type. This chart shows the number of projects by improvement type. The value of these 290 projects is approximately $1.15 billion through the March 2021 bid awards, with 270 GDOT let projects worth approximately $1.115 billion and 20 local let projects worth approximately $42.7 million. This chart shows the dollar amount distribution by improvement type, with maintenance, bridge, and road projects making up the bulk of those types. Here are the results of the March 2021 letting. Of the 17 GDOT let contracts presented to the board, all were awarded. So now I'm going to discuss the projects in the May 2021 letting. We have a total of 41 projects with 37 GDOT and 4 local lets. The next 4 slides list the 40 non-TIA projects arranged by congressional district. So as you can see with this slide, we are letting a variety of projects throughout the state to address bridge capacity, enhancement, maintenance, and safety issues. The first highlighted project proposes a new roadway to provide access to undeveloped land and also help sustain industrial and commercial development in the area of Effingham County. The project would begin at State Route 30, approximately 1.5 miles west of State Route 21, and terminate at Blue Jay Road. The total length of this new two-lane roadway is approximately 6.36 miles. The next project is the construction of the Brampton Road Connector, which will be located from State Route 21, which is also State Route 25, to the State Route 21 spur. This new four-lane facility, sponsored in partnership with the Georgia Ports Authority, will provide a more direct route for GPA's Garden City Terminal and will result in a substantial reduction in the existing truck traffic in the residential areas, as well as support the tremendous growth of the port. This next project, located in Gwinnett County, will resurface State Route 20 from Laurel Drive to State Route 316 for a distance of 6.7 miles. This section was last repaved in 2006, 15 years ago. This is an excellent example of our commitment to maintaining our existing infrastructure. This project will construct a single-lane roundabout at the intersection of State Route 247 and State Route 247 spur in Houston County. This project will reduce crash frequency and severity while improving operational efficiency at this intersection. This project is the replacement of the structurally deficient bridge on Interstate 85, both northbound and southbound, over Indian Creek. The existing bridges were constructed in 1963, 58 years ago. And here's a ground view of one of those bridges to be replaced. This next project will provide 4 12-foot lanes with a depressed grass median from State Route 4 business north of Wadley to State Route 4 business south of Louisville for a distance of 5.91 miles. This project is part of the Governor's Road Improvement Program, known as GRIP. It will provide additional capacity and support economic development. We'll also point out that we added this to our program after we received federal COVID relief funding, which was added to our maintenance program, which allowed us to free up state funds to advance this project as well as the next two I'm going to highlight. This next project will also provide 4 12-foot lanes with a depressed grass median from Mennonite Church Road to State Route 540 for a distance of 6.5 miles, again on US 1. This project, like the previous one, is part of the Governor's Road Improvement Program, and it will provide additional capacity and support economic development. This project was advanced from the proposed program year of 2025. This final highlighted project consists of the construction of the Monticello Bypass in Jasper County. This 2-lane bypass begins at the intersection of State Route 16 and State Route 380 and extends northwest to State Route 83 and Kelly Road. The total project length is 3.28 miles. This project provides vehicles the opportunity to avoid downtown traffic, thereby reducing delays and minimizing congestion in downtown Monticello. This project was advanced from the proposed program year of 2023. And now we'll talk about the TIA projects.
Thank you, Albert. Good morning. The TIA office has one project in the letting. It's actually a local let in Cook County. Turn lanes on State Route 37. And basically the county and the city had worked together to deliver this project. They're adding turn lanes for a recreation facility that is currently under construction and about to open. They've known this facility was coming for some time, and we're able to put it in the TIA program in the southern Georgia region.
So we have 41 projects proposed for the May 2021 letting. This chart shows the distribution by improvement types. The estimate of the projects in the May 2021 letting is approximately $278 million. This chart shows the dollar amount distribution by improvement type. I now ask for your consideration for approval of the proposed projects presented for the May 2021 letting.
Any questions for Mr. Shelby on the May letting? If not, the board entertain a motion for approval. We have a motion and approval. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Approval carried. Thank you, Mr. Shelby, for that fine report.
Thank you, sir. And just one last thing, we also have one project that's proposed for the construction board revisions. This one project will actually come back for action by planning at the May board meeting, but I just want to show you that one project. There's no action there, so it's just an informative thing. Okay.
Great, thank you. At this time, I'll ask the commissioner to come before the board to give his report, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the board.
Good morning.
It is fantastic to see so many of you in person here, and thanks to the board members here that are virtual as well. It is really great to see everybody. Mr. Chairman, I will start, as I always do, with our transportation fund collections and provide that update for the month of March. The total revenue was $155.1 million, excise constituting $142.9 million, and $12.2 million in fees. As compared to March of 2020, excise is down about 1.6%, and hotel fees were down about 20%. Now, I'll remind you that these collections are on a lag, so March is probably more like February, which is comparing back to pre-pandemic impacts. So that gives us our year-to-date total of revenue being $1.49 billion. $1.38 billion of that comes from excise. The balance, $110 million, are transportation fees. So year-to-date compared to year ago year-to-date we're down about $32.8 million. Interestingly enough, again, as I just talked about being a lag, that we're really comparing year-to-date back to 2020 year-to-date prior to pandemic, excise is only off 0.03%. So not even 0.1%, basically level, but yet traffic volumes are still not 100% back, but close to getting 100% back. But consumption is almost the same as to pre-pandemic, which is fantastic news. Highway impact fees year-to-date are up 19%. So that's the heavy vehicle fee, electric vehicle fee. Hotel is down about 27% year-to-date, as you could imagine. So again, pretty good numbers in my opinion. And next month when we get collections, the percentages are going to change pretty drastically because we're going to be comparing to COVID impact numbers, which were in March, where everything fell off, as you remember, of traffic being down 60-70%. So it'll be interesting to see how those numbers look next month. Let me move into our total employment figure. At the end of March, 3,587 full-time staff, 50 temporary maintenance staff. We hired 21 employees, promoted 44 employees, and had 37 separations. So that's the employment update. Next is our professional procurement services update for March. 207 contracts were executed at a value of $60.1 million. That brings our fiscal year-to-date professional services contracts total to 1,332 contracts at $477.8 million. Again, all the professional services, all the work it takes to get projects for Mr. Shelby to come present to you for approval for action. So tremendous amount of work, and I should have mentioned that initially is you just approved a month for $278 million of lettings. That is very robust. Albert Albert should have said how robust that is, but that is a robust letting. Generally, we're hover around 100 to 150 million a month, so a big month for those projects that he highlighted there that made a big difference, and some major milestone projects, Effingham County Parkway and some of the grip corridors there in Louisville, big projects, so a very good letting. Let me now move into highlighting some projects open to traffic since we were together last month. And I'll start with this one, which is a smaller project, but I highlight it because it is one of Southern Georgia's TIA projects. And just to remember how fast Kenneth and the TIA team are delivering TIA projects from Southern Georgia now that's just been underway a year. This TIA project is in Pierce County, which is GDOT District 5, and also in the 1st Congressional District. And it's 6 miles of shoulder widening, leveling, and resurfacing on St. John's Road, beginning at State Route 121 and ending at US 84. The contractor was East Coast Asphalt Company. It represents a $1.7 million TIA investment, 100% TIA. The project was completed and open to traffic ahead of schedule. Now let's move into, and there's the picture of the roadway resurfaced, not good-looking roadway. It'll last for a long time. Let's move into Congressional District 3 in Troup County, which is also GDOT District 3. This is a capital maintenance project. It consists of bridge rehabilitation at various locations on Interstate I-85 in Troup County. The contractor was Comanche Construction. The project opened to traffic on March 20th. It represents a $5.9 million capital maintenance investment. And again, taking care of the interstate bridges as they were originally built provides a lot more longevity to them, but we don't have to replace them as soon by doing this capital maintenance. Now we'll move into Congressional District 9, Jackson County, GDOT District 1. This project consists of reconstruction of a bridge and approaches on State Route 334 over Sandy Creek. The contractor was Tally Construction Company. It replaced a bridge that was originally built in 1961. It opened to traffic on March 30th. It represents a $3.8 million investment, of which was state funds and bond funds. So this is one of the bond projects that we have advanced. So very good to have this project open, and it opened to traffic ahead of schedule. Also in GDOT District 1, but now in Congressional District 10 in Barrow County. This is a major interchange project on State Route 316 at State Route 81. This grade separation interchange provided a full diamond interchange, urban type interchange at 316 and 81 there in Barrow County. The contractor was CMES. The project was scheduled for completion back in October, so it didn't make it the schedule, but we're certainly glad to have the project open. It represents a $45.7 million investment to build a new interchange there on 316. Out of the $45.7 million, there was $31.5 million of state funding on it, so more state funding and a little less federal. Now, I'd like to highlight this project as well as other projects. This is one of 4 interchanges that was actively under construction on State Route 316 between Gwinnett County in Oconee County there at 10 Loop in Athens. As you may have heard, we had an announcement that we have plans to work on 20 locations along 316 to replace everywhere there's a traffic signal currently will be replaced with a bridge, interchange, or an overpass. There's 13 interchanges to be built, 7 grade separations. And we'll have all those under construction by 2025. Represents $829 million investment along that almost 40 miles of State Route 316. So again, this is the first interchange to open, new interchange to open on 316 since State Route 20 was built, interchange was built many years ago. And there's actively 3 other interchanges under construction now. So very good news for that important corridor between Athens and Atlanta, and more good news that we're well underway to make those other locations that are traffic signals into interchanges. Now let me move away from projects open to traffic and move into recognitions like we always like to do. And I'd first like to recognize Mr. Greg Morris with us for joining the State Transportation Board in the 12th Congressional District. Congratulations to Greg for his election. Many of you know, he's from Vidalia, a graduate of University of Georgia. Prior to being elected to the State House, the 156th District there, in 1998, he served also as a Toombs County County Commissioner for 3 years. So Greg has demonstrated leadership for many years. I know several of you know Greg. We're very excited to have him on board. I really liked his words that he had to say during his election about the importance of budget in the House, but also the importance of the State Transportation Board to each congressional district. So, Greg, welcome aboard. We look forward to giving you the 10-cent tour and meeting with you and continuing to do great things for the 12th Congressional District. So welcome aboard.
Thank you so much, Commissioner, and I'm looking forward to seeing everybody at the May meeting in person. Thank you very much. Old friends and meeting new. I can't wait to really get started.
Thank you, sir. Next, let me highlight something that was really a great thing, and it was the Senate recognizing our own Carol Comer for her dedication in service to Georgia DOT by providing her a resolution. Now, obviously, the legislature this year couldn't do resolutions as they normally would do in the chamber, but we had a nice little get-together where Carol was provided a Senate resolution from Chairman Blake Tillery, and we also had Senator Steve Gooch, Senate President Pro Tem Butch Miller, State Transportation Chairman Frank Ginn, Leader Dugan, and also House Appropriations Chairman Terry England for a little impromptu and certainly a surprise to Carol. We told her we needed to talk about airport projects, and all these people need to talk about the airport. So she came with her list ready to go. And even when we sat down, I think she still thought we were going to talk about airport projects. But I'm very appreciative for the Senate and the members of the House to recognize Carol's work. They did this because Carol has given us her intent that she plans to retire by November of this year, of which I'll ask for a motion to object to that, and we can approve that. I'm not sure that the retirement system will agree, but we certainly are proud of all Carol's work and dedication, and it was truly a highlight of my day and that week to be part of that, and we surprised her pretty good. So when you have a chance, again, give Carol your congratulations. She certainly has done so much for intermodal and especially aviation in Georgia. Now let me move into some other news and updates. As things do start returning a little bit to normal, we had the 2021 ACEC Georgia Transportation Summit on March 30th, of where our GDOT team participated. This was technically the 26th annual summit, and of course last year's was canceled due to COVID. The summit was born out of something called the Georgia Partnership for Transportation Quality, which goes way back 26 years ago to something that was a national quality initiative program. And it's really focused on how does Georgia DOT or state DOTs partner with the private sector to focus on quality in transportation, from design, environmental, right-of-way, everything, utilities, all the way through construction and operations. So there was over 500 participants in person in Athens at the Classic Center, socially distanced, I might add. They used the big theater, which is really big, so people were able to spread out, and had over 600 people virtually attending. So 1,100 people attending, which is one of the biggest in the nation as far as I know. So really a great day to come together to focus on quality. We're glad to have Mr. Chairman Bowen join us, and Jamie Boswell came all the way from the other side of town to Athens. It was appreciate you sacrificing, Jamie, and had Russ Carricker on virtually as well. So we appreciate all your participation there. And I want to say a special big thanks to Harwal Patel, our Division Director of Engineering, who has to work with She works with ACEC. I think she has to. That's part of the job description. But great partnership with ACEC, and we say it that way, to put together the program, to get our staff to present the technical topics in the afternoon. and she does a fantastic job making it a success. So thanks to her all and everybody that participated. But I'd like to recognize a few of the awardees. So part of the quality, the Georgia Partnership for Transportation Quality, is recognizing exemplary projects. And so GDOT actually won several of those ourselves. The first award was to Mr. Frank Flanders, who was recognized for excellence as the co-chair of the Roadway Design Subcommittee. So throughout the year, we have meetings, consultant relation committee meetings with the consultant community all through the year to talk about technical topics, and we have various committees. So recognizing Frank for his work. Also recognize Mr. Andy Casey for an achievement award for the GDOT's Practical Design Guide. If you remember, just last month, Andy presented that Practical Design Guide here to you. So that was awarded as well. GDOT also took on top honors for the category of NEPA, that's the National Environmental Policy Act, for environmental protection, preservation, and restoration. And it was for the bridge preservation on I-75 over Newtown Road in Gordon County. Congratulations to Sujay Varamachi. I'm said that wrong. I'm sorry, Sujay. Eric Duff and David Hedin. In the category of context-sensitive planning and design and public participation, GDOT District 1 took home the honors for State Route 9 at State Route 60 Roundabout, otherwise known as Stonepile Gap Roundabout. Some of you have seen that picture and been through there. Congratulations to Justin Lott, Parker Nabauer of District 1, and David Borchardt with GDOT from NEPA. Also in the category of highway design for rural projects, GDOT District 1 edged out GDOT District 3. Now, I might tell you this, this is totally open to consultants and everybody, all project submittals. And so GDOT District 1 edged out District 3 for the West Cleveland Bypass Phase 3 project that is actively under construction. So congratulations to the District 1 team as well. And congrats to all the award winners. And we had a record number of nominees this year, and it's quite a process to go through all the awards and make a determination of winners. So a great opportunity there with the Transportation Summit, and glad we could participate. Speaking of summits, there was a different type of transportation summit hosted by Georgia's congressional members from the 4th, 5th, and 7th, who happened to be on the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee that was hosted with several transportation folks like myself from here in Georgia and some elected officials that hosted with Chairman Peter DeFazio. That's the picture of him on the left, of course, a virtual meeting. And Chairman DeFazio talked about basically transportation priorities that he is advancing through the House, and also the President's jobs plan that he talked about. So we had Congressman Hank Johnson from the 4th, Congresswoman Carolyn Bordeaux from the 7th, and Congresswoman Nikema Williams from the 5th on as well, and they all got to talk about transportation, their transportation priorities. I might add, this is the strongest representation Georgia's had on the House T&I committee in many years. And so Georgia is well represented, included Chairman DeFazio mentioned that he thought on a per capita basis, Georgia probably had more representation than any other state. So that's always a good thing. Doug Hooker from the ARC, Chris Tomlinson from the ATL, and Jeff Parker from MARTA, and myself joined in the conversation and was able to provide comments about reauthorization in the Jobs Act the President's proposed. So just a quick rundown on the Jobs Act. I know you've seen some of this in the media. It is a $2.3 billion package for jobs. Out of the $2.3 billion, there's $600 billion for transportation. And sort of the breakdown on that was about $115 billion to modernize bridges and roads and main streets that are in need of repair, $85 billion to modernize and expand transit systems, $80 billion for rail infrastructure investment, $25 billion for airport-related funding, $17 billion for infrastructure investments for inland waterways, coastal ports, ports of entries, and ferry systems, $174 billion to support transition to electric vehicles, $160 billion in funding, and about $14 billion in tax credits. And so that was the bulk of it. There's a couple of other programs in the President's Jobs Act. One is a $20 billion program that will work to reconnect neighborhoods that were cut off due to highway expansion to increase opportunity and advance equity and environmental justice. There was another $20 billion program for roadway safety for creation of a new Safe Streets for All program and focus on Vision Zero. Those are things that we are already laser focused on context sensitive solutions and designs and working toward Vision Zero. So stay tuned. Josh will provide some more information about that in his presentation later. The President highlighted that 10 of the most economically significant bridges in the country need to be repaired. The example was the Brent Spence Bridge, which connects Kentucky to Cincinnati. That one actually had a truck fire and was closed earlier this year. Seemed very familiar to our experience of 4 years ago. So we'll stay tuned. Also, just recently, you might have seen there was a scorecard that came out from the White House rating each state's infrastructure. Georgia received a C+, and I have to tell you that Georgia and Utah tied for best out of the nation with a C+. Now, this reminds me of high school when I told my parents that the C+ was just as good as the other people. They didn't seem to find that of comfort and thought that I should have done better. So I think it's even recognizing that we may be tied with Utah for the best rating as a C+, I think it's certainly a call to arms that we have a lot to do in this nation's infrastructure. So stay tuned. We'll see what happens through congressional actions with the president's plan. And the thing that I talked about on the call was really the importance of reauthorization. So and make sure it's clear because it's not quite easy to discern out of the media. There's two things being talked about: the president's jobs plan, and then separately is most importantly to us is the reauthorization that has to happen by the end of September this year, which is the 5-year transportation programs that are formula funded. And so I had an opportunity to do a little bit of an interview with WSB, of which they've run over the past few days, and talk about the criticality that we have to have that level long-term funding such that we can plan these projects that regrettably take too long. They take 5 to 10 years to develop big projects and do meaningful work. And so we've got to have that sustainable funding to do that. That's why reauthorization that Chairman DeFazio has been focused on is very important. So stay tuned. We'll keep you updated. Now that I've mentioned a few things to you about sort of getting back to a little bit to new normal, I wanted to bring you up to date as where we are as an agency as we're working our way to transition back to new normal. And I know that term is overused, but we have started rolling out information to our staff about what that means. We have gone through over this last year and revamped a lot of policies and procedures. As you know, we've had about 40% of our staff teleworking, and I almost always have to commend all the folks in maintenance, operations, construction that are still working as if nothing ever happened, so always credit to them. But to the other 40% of the agency that's been pretty much exclusively teleworking, we've updated our policies to be extremely flexible, to continue the opportunity to telework. And the way we've approached that was we've gone through with the office heads and division directors and looked at the job specifics first. Are those jobs suitable for telework in a non-COVID environment? And then after that was determined, the frequency was being taught, the frequency was determined of how much can you telework. And then finally, there's a relationship to the employee. Is that employee suitable and capable for telework? And so our goal is to provide maximum flexibility, especially as we begin a transition. As you've seen, the governor's executive order sort of goes through the end of this month. So we anticipate re-entry of new normal. That doesn't mean everybody's coming back at one time. That means as a thoughtful, deliberate, safe sort of new normal begins, we plan to start making progress for first of next month. So that's where we are. providing a lot of resources. This is our telework hub that's on our internal web that provides lots of information. But basically provides training videos for employees and managers. And, teleworking is one thing, but managing is another. So we even have training for telemanaging of how to work with, as a manager, how do you work with people that are virtually or in a hybrid situation. We've got our policies, we got resources, we've got a FAQ, all for our employees to take advantage of as they begin to think about transitioning back. And again, just like every business in this country, we feel like our ultimate footprint here and across the districts will be smaller because we can take advantage of the teleworking. But our goal is to make sure that it's meaningful, that we have training opportunities. There's no substitute for some OJT and peer-to-peer relationships in the office. So we're going to try to figure out the balance. I'm going to tell you that we don't have the perfect plan, but I don't think anybody's got the perfect plan. But the way we're going to work forward is to be flexible, understanding of our employees and the situations they're in. Obviously, school's not out. That's a big issue for everybody, too, that where schools are still virtual. A lot of schools are still virtual. So we plan to work forward. And I guess the final thing I'll say about this new normal is we expect to have back to normal board meetings, committee meetings on Wednesday and Thursday next month, and the board meeting on Thursday. So adjust your calendar. You have to be back on Wednesday, unless something changes. But we'd like to start transition back to the new normal, as I call it. Any questions? I'll pause there because this is our employees got a email out yesterday about if they're telework, if their job's been identified for telework, to start the process of updating their telework agreements, putting those in place. I don't think we've shared this, but prior to COVID-19, our telework policy allowed some positions at a low pay grade to telework at least 1 day a week, maybe up to 1 day a week. So I think we've demonstrated through over a year now of continuing to be successful, meeting our KPIs and delivering to the state of Georgia. And that was what direction from the governor's office is: customer service always number one, to make sure we're fulfilling our customers' needs and to be as flexible as possible. So any questions or thoughts? Okay, thank you. Now, speaking of being successful and making progress, wanted to update you on our I-75 commercial vehicle lanes. That was one of the things that came up in the interview with WSB following that transportation summit with Chairman DeFazio, was, wow, that's really a great idea for moving commerce. It certainly is focused on safety. And wow, the question was, can we do more of that? So back in December, we had our public information open house, and we've compiled those responses and got those back out on the internet. But we continue to receive a lot of positive support from local governments and leaders along that corridor, and a lot of interest in these commercial vehicle lanes that are coming fast. So here's a tidbit from Mayor Kay Pippin, who is the mayor of Jackson, Georgia, and Jackson's just east of I-75 in Butts County. So I'll play this for you.
I'm Kay Pippin, mayor of the city of Jackson. Our city is located in the very heart of Georgia. We're south of Atlanta, north of Macon, and about 3 hours from the ever-expanding ports in the city of Savannah. We are fortunate that I-75 runs through our county, delivering people, goods, and services to America's entire eastern seaboard and bringing visitors and commerce to our local community. We were grateful when, a few years ago, the Georgia Department of Transportation built express lanes on I-75 south of Atlanta. Those lanes have greatly improved travelers' ability to navigate the heavy traffic on I-75. And now we could not be more excited about Georgia DOT's major mobility investment program, which includes new commercial vehicle lanes to be built on I-75 through central Georgia. These new lanes will provide a passageway for the thousands of trucks traveling from the ports of Savannah and beyond. Providing a corridor to separate commercial vehicles from passenger vehicles will improve mobility for all users of I-75 and make travel on that corridor significantly safer for everyone. I-75 is not only a very valuable transportation corridor for our local economy, but also for the economies of our region, great state of Georgia, and America. I-75 connects workers to jobs, rural communities to cities, and it moves goods and services to keep our economy strong. Let's face it, I-75 improves the quality of life for everyone. We appreciate Georgia's Department of Transportation for continuing to assure that Georgia has some of the best and safest transportation corridors in America.
All right, I'd like to thank Mayor Pippin for her continued support, not only of this project, but she's always been a big advocate of transportation and infrastructure investment. So it was really nice and thankful for her doing that. Well, let me move into some updates. It seems like every time I stand before you, there's some weather event to talk about, and it wasn't too long after our last board meeting. In fact, Thursday, March 25th was when we started getting forecasts of major thunderstorms and flash floods across much of northeast Georgia and metro Atlanta. For the next 12 hours or so, we had tornado watches and warnings that were throughout northeast Georgia, predominantly District 1, 3, and 6. And certainly got heavy rains. Here's a picture of State Route 180 up in Union County where there had a major washout and pipe failure due to the washout due to that heavy rain. GDOT District 1 crews had to close 180 pretty quickly, and within really 2 days, they had that repaired and back open. You can see in the bottom right, but you can see the kind of hillside, mountainous terrain that is on 180 in Union County. Amazing work. But as you all know, on March 25th, just before midnight was when the tornado warnings were issued for west central Georgia, which was, Heard, Coweta, Polk counties, and you can see there the map. A lot of counties was where the EF4 tornado came down, specifically in Noonan, Coweta County, in Heard County, and on up into Polk County. Tornado, was certainly violent. You've seen the pictures. The EF4 has winds up to 170 miles an hour. Certainly a significant impact. I am always so grateful and thankful to the men and women of GDOT who respond in these emergencies and respond very quickly. In fact, we've had District 2, 3, 4, and 6 all work in District 3, which predominantly in Coweta, Heard, and Polk County, to start the debris cleanup. Certainly the District 3 teams have been there. We finally got the other districts in so that they could get some rest. To date, as of yesterday, we have hauled 4,269 dump truck loads of debris out of those counties, totaling almost 10,000 tons. Think about that, 10,000 tons of material. And here's here's some of the pictures you can see. Generally, we always, on a daily basis, we've got between 150, right now it's down a little bit, between 100 to 200 people working on a daily basis. We initially were 7 days a week, and then now we're sort of back to 5 days a week and working with the counties, working with GEMA to sort of stand down a little bit, but still working, even today, still working to clean up. And let me tell you, we've had so many accolades and thanks from the community. It's been really overwhelming. We've had a lot of nice gestures to our employees for doing the work that they're doing. I've received many texts. Russ Carricker, I know Russ had forwarded a text or two, and he's received comments. And I also have received, I've lost count, at least 3 texts and forward of information from Governor Kemp, where people had reached out to him saying thank you to GDOT for their response. But again, I can't say enough for the men and women of GDOT to respond to the call of things like tornadoes and extreme weather events. But it's not always a tornado. It's been an interesting week thus far, and since we were together last, let me just bring you up to speed on a few things. Had a major crash involving a tractor trailer Monday morning on 285 over near on the DeKalb County on the east side. Mr. Brown, over near you. It was a tanker that overturned, that knocked the overhead sign down. If you look in the left part of the screen there, you can see the tanker lost some 7,000 gallons of fuel. So there was a hazmat aspect of this to have to be cleaned up, and then the sign had to be removed, and regretfully that was closed all the way to about 5 p.m. So a major traffic impact. I can tell you how we use technology, our traffic SIGOPS program, where we are able to take control of traffic signals, change the traffic signal timings on those signals so that all the arterial streets around that area can move as much traffic as possible. But it's hard to displace 285 traffic and put it on arterials. It's causes some backup. So that was Monday. So on Tuesday, about 4:30, two tractor trailers tangled I-85 southbound just inside of Spaghetti Junction there at 285. About 4:30. One of the trucks was carrying a form of soybean oil that spread across 5 of 7 lanes for a couple hundred feet in all directions. And our folks, our maintenance folks, our heroes, and even the commercial cleanup companies tried to get the soybean oil product up off the road to no success. It was very slick, and so we had to call District 1 for help to come and basically mill up the asphalt to repave the lanes where the soybean oil was spread, because otherwise it would have been very slick, and that's not good on 5 of 7 lanes of I-85 at that long. That crash happened about 4:30 in the morning, and it was open lanes a little after 6 p.m. So another major cleanup. But thank goodness for, again, the men and women of GDOT who responded. They tried their darndest just to clean it up, to get the lanes open, but ultimately turned into a milling and repaving job to get that done. Just yesterday morning, a dump truck had its bed up on 85 southbound up in Hart County, just inside the South Carolina border, and hit a bridge, State Route 328, over 85, which 85 was closed. So our District 1 folks responded to that, and our bridge inspectors had to inspect the damage to the bridge and before we could reopen it. The good news is that bridge is scheduled to be replaced soon, but certainly took a lot of damage yesterday. And then finally, you might have heard yesterday afternoon, sorry, to back up. I got ahead, gave the punchline away. But yesterday afternoon, we had a overhead sign on I-85 South down by the airport. It was actually the northbound exit sign to 285 and 85. That the top of the sign became loose, and it didn't fall, but it rotated down such that trucks and cars couldn't pass under it safely. So we have certainly, they got the sign down yesterday. We were doing an inspection to find out why that happened. We'll keep you posted. We are already starting to inspect the other signs around it to make sure we're not seeing anything that could be of a concern. But the good news is it didn't fall. I believe there was probably one truck that may have hit the sign, but no injuries. So just wanted to say that it's been a little overwhelming, but if that's not enough, you know, you can find cows on 285 every now and then. This was a couple of weeks ago. A cow spotted, a motorist spotted the cow, and it was reported about 9 a.m. And evidently, it got out of a livestock trailer that was on 285, and it took about an hour of closing 3 lanes before the cow was safely, I might add, corralled and rescued and returned to its owner. So we're not sure about how this came about. We're not sure if this was part of a Chick-fil-A ad about eat more chicken or what, but it certainly caused interruption to traffic. So I hope next month I have nothing to report to you on these type of activities. But in closing, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the board, seriously, without getting too choked up, the men and women of GDOT responding to the tornado I have personally, I didn't say this earlier, my wife grew up in Noonan up till about age 10. We've been contacted by people that knew her growing up and just say that those yellow trucks are heroes to them, and how it's just been really heartfelt to see the great goodness of people, not only GDOT, but people showing up to help. And one of the things we're not accustomed to was people turned out with chainsaws, cleared up trees, and had the stuff cut up on the road. All we had to do was load it and haul it out. And so we were surprised about how many people, just citizens, turned out and were helping. To see the goodness in humankind was certainly rewarding and actually made our job easier, but there's still much work to be done. So, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my lengthy report. Thank you, sir. I'll be glad to entertain any questions.
Thank you for that fine report, Commissioner. Does anyone, I'd like to make a comment from the board of what a great job that our men and women of GDOT do every day. I mean, they are confronted with many, many issues every day, safety issues out on the road systems, and how they put their lives in harm's way a lot of times and what they are doing. And I can't thank them enough when you see some of the events that he has shown us here this morning that have taken place. And we just thank you so much to the men and women of GDOT and the great work that they do every day, and with the attitude that they have. And I know the board concurs and feels that way. And at this time, is any questions from Mr. Brown?
Yes, sir. Commissioner, on the trees that were blown over by the storm, where do they take the debris and stuff like that?
Yeah, so it's going to construction and debris landfill area that was identified by the county, and usually those are also GEMA and then FEMA, usually eligible sites. So some of those are predetermined. And in this case, I don't know exactly, but I know that they're going to one site, and we didn't show a picture of it, but there literally is a mountain of debris. I mean, you can't imagine, when you see that many, almost 10,000 tons of debris, it is a mountain.
So they don't burn it or anything like that?
Ultimately, it could be burned or ground up, and that will be handled separately, not from us.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions for the Commissioner? Thank you again, Commissioner, for that fine report. At this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Josh Waller to come forward to give us an update on the legislative.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Commissioner. Thank you for the
Morning.
opportunity to provide you a state and federal legislative update covering the transportation legislation that was passed during the most recent session, and then kind of conclude with discussion of the federal infrastructure funding as it was proposed by the administration, as well as the federal reauthorization process, and take a look at the calendar for Congress over the next 6 months as well in conclusion. First, we'll take a look at the legislative calendar. You can see the session. All 40 days are highlighted in red. They concluded on March the 31st. Under state law, the governor has 40 days, or under the Constitution, the governor has 40 days to review the legislation to either sign, veto, or allow it to become law without his signature. As you can see, we're on the 15th. He's got about 25 more days, 25 more days to review the legislation. Here's sort of a summary of the legislation. I'm going to talk in more detail about each, but 577 and 588 were two key transportation bills. Specifically, House Bill 511 and 317 deal with funding. 165 deals with autonomous vehicles and provides a statutory update. Then two study committees, as well as covering the road dedications, and a few bills that didn't make it over, and talk about them. First is House Bill 577, which started off as the agency's legislation, which y'all approved an agenda last year. Cover the first three bullets we've talked about in the past few meetings. The first is optional bid bonds for routine maintenance projects. That's just giving us the discretion to require that bid bond or the proposal guarantee, make it optional for a lot of these ITBs that we're doing in the districts. Sometimes that can be an impediment to some small businesses participating, so this giving that flexibility for routine maintenance to help increase small business participation. We had an update to our airport licensing statute just to make sure that we have all the tools necessary working with local courts to deal with someone who might be operating for public use, not private, public use airports without a license. Clarifying the default speed limits just to make it clear that it's dealing with urban or residential, it's either the default limit or as posted. Just added the phrase as posted. The next bullet I'll talk about in more detail is authorizing Georgia EPD to update its environmental regs. This was a new addition through the process, as well as another provision dealing with the department's P3 statutes, as well as some new contracting authorities that would be given to the department if signed into law. So first, I'll talk about the addition of the allowing EPD within the next year to update rules to establish some new buffer variance criteria for the department when we're impacting trout streams, when that impact is parallel to the trout stream. Now, it's important to know that in this instance, we would still have to use full erosion control and all efforts to mitigate the impact. The reason this is needed, we have a few projects in North Georgia where, because of the restrictions on parallel impacts, and because a trout water is defined by the characteristic of its water temperature, here are some examples of trout waters in North Georgia. So this cleanup will just ensure that we have about 3 or 4 projects that have been held up. This will give EPD the opportunity to update those rules. We certainly appreciate, I know the commissioner's taken a lead in working with the EPD director to find some working language. So we look forward to that process with EPD. Next is updating some of the contracting language. First is updating our current P3 statute, and this was born out of the Freight and Logistics Study Committee. And it's to make sure that our P3 includes intermodal, multimodal projects, as well as creates a new code section, 32.282, authorizing 3 alternative contracting methods. CMCG, construction manager, general contractor, the pre-development agreement, and the comprehensive development agreement, which I'll discuss in more detail. First is the construction manager, general contractor overview. December 2016, FHWA authorized state DOTs to use CMCG for federal aid projects. And it's ideal for projects that have complexities that require additional cooperation with the contractor for either schedule or design complexity, constructability challenges. And what 577 does is it authorizes, so even though FHWA authorized it, they required states to have explicit authorization in their statutes to be able to do it. Authorizes GDOT to use a single competitive process to secure a contractor to perform pre-construction and construction services. So I'll sort of explain the mechanics. So we think of this as sort of a 2-phase contract, the first being the pre-construction service phase. And the designer, it could be in-house GDOT or it could be consultant. But the distinction with CMCG versus a design build, where that's one contract for the builder and designer, these are separate contracts. So what happens during the pre-construction phase, we're able, through competitive qualification-based selection, we bring in the CMCG in their capacity as a construction manager. As you can see by the arrows there, their job is to work with the designer to look at impacts such as scheduling, work sequencing, cost engineering, constructability, cost estimating, and risk identification. The value of this interaction is being able to provide quality to the design, and then that helps improve design, have a better understanding about quantities. You can even, as underscored here, when we talk about phase 2 construction, you see that overlap. You're actually able to begin some construction earlier in the process. Then, because you have this information, better detailing we have a better sense of the cost. You can then negotiate and either reach a fair price with the CMCG and they become the general contractor to build it, or if you don't, you can then advertise it like you would a traditional design bid build, because the department would own the design. So provide a little bit of context and some comparison as to the benefits, one being that potential time component. You see, and this is sourced from the Transportation Research Record, design, bid, build, the traditional model, which a lot of our program is 100% design, bid out, low bid. You can see that. Then design, build, you can see you have some overlap there. But then the department still has to do a high level of design, about, in a lot of cases, about 35%, thereabouts, before you can go and advertise it, to get some sense of how because you're going to award on some cost basis. Then here you can see with CMCG, the overlap and the amount of time that can be saved by bringing the CMCG earlier into the process, by bringing in that person who would be building the project early to improve the design quality. Any questions about that? So the next, in addition to CMCG, there were two other additional contracts authorized. One's a pre-development agreement. So with CMCG, it's been mentioned, that's really geared to additional. You know, one of the things we talked about, bridge projects, it's been highlighted, potentially the Talmadge Bridge. Commissioner did an interview talking about how the Talmadge Bridge could be potentially solved, or at least looked at via CMCG. The other are the pre-development and the comprehensive development agreement. They're for less traditional project types, intermodal types perhaps, truck parking. So a pre-development agreement's one that's, one key of it is maybe we haven't fully developed the scope. So we want to bring in the private sector to help us say we've got an objective, but we might need help further fleshing out the scope. We might not have a full sense about its financial feasibility. Bring them in early into the process. And we may or may not, at the end of the day, pursue a project. And maybe you bring in private participation, try to solve the issue, and ultimately decide that we can't solve it. A comprehensive development agreement is similar, but it has some distinctions. One is, obviously, similarity, it's bringing collaboration on the project at the concept phase. It allows for design and construction overlap, so you can save some time, but also creates the ability for operations, long-term operations and maintenance, if it's something that the department would not do. So, and again, as mentioned, this might be ideal for your intermodal or the truck parking. That was some of the needs that were identified during the Freight and Logistics Commission. So this is actually a major expansion of the statutes, and a lot of effort went into it. And I want to thank the commissioner. I want to thank our legal team, Matt, Helen, Annette, as well as the SAGs. But in particular, we had to work with industry, and the commissioner helped lead that effort to make sure that we got these new methods in place, but had sufficient kind of guidelines for moving forward to keep industry, make sure we addressed everyone's concerns. So we have to adopt rules and regs for each of these methods. The board will actually approve any project before it's initiated. So before we do the first step is the board. Now, we can do no more than 2 of these contracting types in a fiscal year, that execute a contract. No more than 7 over a 10-year period. No project can encumber more than 5% of the total capital budget. Again, these are sort of safeguards to help, especially if you go back and think about design build, which we do a lot today. 10, 15 years ago, when we introduced design build, very similar. You know, FHWA, as a result of the 90s, early 2000s, said we'll start doing federal projects, but states needed to go and update their laws. We did that. It started with some restraints. As industry got comfortable, as we perfected the rules, then we went back and looked at adjustments in the statute. And then for each fiscal year where we do it, we have to report on the project, and every 5 years we got to do a report on the program to the governor, lieutenant governor, speaker. Additionally, we had House Bill 588 that was the...
If I ask a question now, just relative to what you just talked about. These all, the ACMs are P3, right? Is that what you said?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
So they're a different statute, but they could be, for each of these methods, they could be let as a P3. The P3 is just sort of contingent on private financing participation or some component where they are Yeah, they don't inherently have to be a P3. They could also be let under the design build statute, but in a lot of cases, they probably would be P3s.
Got it, thank you.
Mr. Lewis?
Yeah, thank you, Josh. I have a question related to that also. At one point, you mentioned about, and going this process, if the department doesn't like the way some aspect of it turns out, we don't have to go through with it. My question related to that is that at what point during this process does this process have to be out for public consumption or public information? Or does it at that point?
So when we go back here, we still would have to, the governor would have to sign the bill, so it becomes law. Then we
Right.
would adopt rules and regs. That would be a public process. And then when the board approves the project, that's when we have a public notification. And so it'll spell out what are the scope of the services. It would identify that process. And so that would be public. And if there is I think you would spell that out publicly, what that process is, and then where would the next public process be in that?
So there likely would be in that process, if an idea or a concept is generated, it would go public, and then it may or may not eventually happen. And the reason I'm asking that question is sometimes now when there's a study or an idea or concept done, the public learns about it, and it may or may not work out in the end. It may not be a good idea, but a lot of us as board members are usually confronted with a lot of questions locally about what happened to this, why isn't that not going forward, or have you guys lost your mind, why are you looking at this? So I was just curious if that would present another, I don't know if we're to call it an opportunity or a challenge, but another scenario of where something may be put out in the public's expectation, but it may not be carried out ultimately.
And understood. I think part of this was you look back to the 2020 Freight and Logistics study, identifying some of these innovative projects like truck parking, some of these intermodal, multimodal, like an inland port, or some of these major corridors that have been done nationally where you're dealing with intermodal projects where we, again, sort of non-traditional, we know we have a challenge, but we might not know enough about the scope of what we're trying to do to write a traditional procurement. And so what you're doing is you may say we have a challenge, provide some broad scope issues, and then you're bringing the private sector to help you maybe narrow that down. The point being is you may, as a result of that, not identify what could be a workable solution for a project GDOT might do.
Commissioner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Josh, let me help you out there a little bit. And to give comfort to the board is we will absolutely have to work with board policy for your approval first and foremost to operationalize these type of procurements. I liken it to having a few new tools in the toolbox that are probably the tools that don't get used very often, but it's nice to have the tool if an opportunity comes up. But we have to operationalize that through board rule policy, and then put, just like we have a design build manual and a P3 procurement manual, the other commitment we have is to work with our industry, both consultant and contractors, to formalize these into processes that are easily, for transparency, to your point, is it's all about transparency, and all these will take, these three new procurement types takes your approval as a board at the beginning to move forward, not at the end to approve something that happens. But the conversation, and you bring up a good point, Mr. Lewis, is that some things you explore may not have an outcome, and the sort of the de-risk to the industry is especially on the CMGC, is you're paying the contractor and the designer to work for the department. And so they're getting paid to do the exploratory work to vet and design and sort of build a better mousetrap if possible. But sometimes, and I think more often than not, it results in an outcome. So we'll just have to, this is a starting point. We have some tools identified. Now we have to put the rules of engagement to how do you use each tool and when, and again, very limited. And this, again, sort of brings us in line with the outcome of the Freight and Logistics Commission work of sort of the things that we can do potentially for the state in that arena, which is a little non-traditional in transportation. So a lot more to come. My analogy I've been telling everybody is, here's three tools. How much we use them, we don't know. We'll have to figure that out as we go forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next bill is House Bill 588, which is in response to the recommendations of the Freight and Logistics Commission. It redefines or refines the definition of public benefit for GDOT's freight rail program, which was statutory authorization that was put into law last year that allowed for, obviously subject to appropriation, 3 different tiers of funding for freight rail projects, one being in non-state-owned rail assets, industrial projects. This further defines the criteria that you have to use to be able to provide state funds to those type projects. Does a list of like congestion mitigation, better movement of freight, as well as other public benefits that the board could establish. It actually includes all of the 3 P3 updates, the P3 updates that we talked about that were in 577, as well as the alternative contracting methods are included in this bill verbatim as well. Dedicates the state locomotive diesel sales tax from the general fund to freight and rail projects. And it broadly kind of defines it being a portion similar to LMIG based off ownership of lines of track. And it changes the current, it updates the House Bill 170 and then House Bill 105 with obviously transportation fees and then the rideshare fees. If they were not appropriated to the purposes, after 2 years they were repealed. After 1 year, it was reduced in half. This changes those mechanisms to a 3-year period where it's after the 2nd year, it's reduced in half, and after the 3rd, it's eliminated. There'll be an interplay here between this and another bill, House Bill 511, which I'm about to talk about. So some other bills, 511, last year Georgia ratified the constitutional amendment allowing for the dedication of fees, so that they would be automatically appropriated to a defined purpose. It restricted that no more than 1% of the fees could go for that. But the 511 actually includes all of the hotel motel fee. It includes the heavy vehicle impact fee, and it includes the electric vehicle fee and the rideshare user fee. I've lost my, all right. So it establishes the Transportation Trust Fund for those fees and the Transit Trust Fund. I had the breakdown here. I had to go find the line. So they capped it at 1% would have been about $259 million. So of all the various fees in there, the hotel motel fee, they estimated it at kind of the pre-COVID levels, assuming we kind of get back there. The transportation fees amount to about $191 million of that trust fund. So by far and away, the transportation fee, the transit, probably about 15 to 20, are the largest components. And then you've got the trauma care fee, hazardous waste trust fund, solid waste trust fund, Georgia agricultural trust fund, fireworks trust fund. But by far and away, are the road fees, or the road and transportation fees, are the largest component. Another bill that's under consideration by the governor is House Bill 317, Lodging Marketplace Facilitator. It requires Airbnb, Verbo, and similar providers to actually collect and remit the $5 a night sales tax. It's still owed today, but it was one of those, again, where your due diligence is you're supposed to report on your taxes. Now this puts the obligation on them. It's estimated that that those transactions should equate to probably an additional $17 million in hotel motel revenue. Next was Senate Bill 165, and it established a $100 annual registration fee for low-speed alternative fuel vehicles. And it clarified that a low-speed vehicle must either have an emblem or a strobe light, as well as it updated the definition of autonomous vehicle to say that as long as it's authorized, as long as if it's an autonomous vehicle with an automatic driving system and in compliance full with federal law, it's exempt from anything that the Fed said they're exempt from. So as you're looking at new technology being deployed, it'll ensure that our law stays up to date with technology specs. Study committees, there's one on looking at airport. There's 2 that will meet over this next year. One looking at airport infrastructure funding. 4 senators, 4 representatives, 2 individuals from both the House and Senate with expertise in airports. Commissioner Economic Development Commissioner, Georgia Airport's President, and Chamber. Sunsets at the end of the year. Then the SR 102 was the Georgia Commission. This is the third iteration of the Freight and Logistics Study Committee. Similar with two folks from Freight and Logistics by both the Lieutenant Governor and Speaker, GDOT Commissioner and Ports Authority Executive Director, and then sunsets at the end of the year. Road dedications, there were 4 bills, and I've actually got the list of all the dedications, and certainly we'll follow up with the members as well as the districts as we look to as they look to begin getting the signs out once the governor signed the legislation. Obviously highlighting the HR 119, the speaker resolution speaker did honoring Senator Johnny Isaacson. They're at the mega site at the port. And of all the dedications, so you should have that in the mail out, but we'll follow up again with more detail. I do want to provide just a little bit of a reminder. The department's role in this is that as legislators want to do a dedication first, they reach out to us to give them a letter. All the letter does is explains whether there's an existing road dedication or bridge dedication, and then we send that to them and the committees, and then they work through that process. I do want to thank Sabota Canal and Eric Conklin and OTD and our Office of Transportation Data for all their work in helping to confirm that information. It's always, we've tried to turn those around as fast as we can, and I think we've gotten it down to a pretty good clip. So with that, there's a couple of bills that didn't make it, the truck weights bills to increase truck weights. Neither of those even passed out of committee. We do expect there'll be some special select subcommittees to look at it over the off season, as well as a bill, House Bill 320. I know some board members have been reached out by local governments that would have decoupled them from what our tiered pricing on right-of-way use. That bill did not make it to the governor. It was not passed by the House as amended. So we expect that conversation will continue, especially as the board is continuing to look at updating our right-of-way fees. So without transition to the federal update, first is the American Jobs Act, and the commissioner covered this earlier. The president proposed $2.3 trillion over 8 years, and there the commissioner actually had already highlighted those, each of those categories, but there you can see that $600 billion laid out. And then probably, as we look at the calendar, so as the commissioner already identified, we've got the traditional, just the reauthorization process, the FAST Act, overlapping with the administration's proposal, which is believed to be additive, or they're indicating it's to be additive. We're expecting the House T&I to try and move a bill sometime before, or at least the chairman has indicated that the House should try and move a bill by the end of May, going into Memorial Day recess, with the House passing something by 4th of July. So we know that the deadline is September the 30th, and a lot of the factors at play here are, one, the dollar amount, the pay-fors. There's talk about changes to the corporate tax rate, the process, especially when you're looking at the U.S. Senate. Do you have 60 votes to move a project, or to move a bill? Or do they have to look at sort of the reconciliation process where they only need 51? If they look at reconciliation, it affects what type of things can be in the bill. So all of those factors come in to say that, as you can see on that calendar, the days in blue are the days the House is in session. The Senate's pretty much overlap. There are a few days where they're there that the House is not, but you get a sense kind of the days that are out there for legislative action. Obviously, committees can meet throughout the whole period, but certainly will make for an interesting next 6 months or so. And with that, concludes my report.
Is there any questions from Mr. Waller on the legislative update? Thank you, Josh. At this time, Ms. Angela Whitworth, if you'll come forward and give us an update on our budget.
Morning, Chairman, members of the board. Glad to be here before you this morning. This update has not changed a lot from last month. I have given the budget presentation It's going on for the last 4 months, so all of y'all through hypnosis can probably go back home and recite this to your constituents when I am over with this. I am going to let you know this is a very successful session. The governor has not passed the bill yet, but this is how, at the end of the legislative process, how we have ended up, which we are very pleased with. As you can see here in this first slide, we had worked with the state economist and OPB back in July to come up with a revenue estimate. There was an additional $216 million that was allocated to come into the budget in motor fuel excise. The non-excise portion of the budget consists of the fees and state general funds. There's an additional $42 million there. We've highlighted where the ATL, you'll see that $12 million coming in, coming out. I will highlight that in a few minutes because they will be they are now administratively attached to GDOT, very similar to the payments to SERTA program. And then you see the fee component going out for Greta, for the total of a little bit over $2 billion, a little bit under $2.1 billion. In this next slide, this is the bar graph that we typically show you that distinguishes how we break out each of the funding. As you can see, in capital projects, that makes up the bulk of our program, which is about 46%. That consists of capital construction, capital maintenance, and the local roads admin program. Next to it is general operations. This consists of 5 programs. One of them was construction admin, which is now, the name has been changed in this process to program delivery administration to better align with what those offices do. The departmental admin is included in this, data collections, planning, and traffic management. Next to that, you see LMIG, which is $196 million, which is 10% of the actual excise. Routine maintenance is our next second largest component of our budget. It's roughly 21%, and this restores most of the funding that had been reduced previously. Payments to SERTA makes up $88 million. Intermodal is roughly 1%, and that includes for our new board members, refresher on this, airport aid, rail, transit, imports are included in intermodal. The GEO bond debt service you see here is roughly $145 million. And then lastly, you'll see that new program, payments to the ATL. Here's kind of the meats and potatoes of how it all laid out. There was an additional $15.2 million in GEO bond debt service in the motor fuel component for the motor fuel side of the house. In capital construction, you'll see an increase of $157 million, which will help for us to deliver additional projects in 21. One of the big primary components of this was the transfer out of capital maintenance motor fuel funds into capital construction, in which those funds in capital maintenance will be supplanted with the COVID relief funds. Also in capital construction, there was 2 new initiatives that you had heard me previously talk about that the planning director, Janine Miller, had initiated. They consist of $10 million each, $6 million state, $4 million federal. What these were was, one was focused on the freight operations in the state. This initiative will assist with improving road and bridge facilities that are heavily traversed by trucks for small-scale investments that can address safety and enhance efficiency of freight movement throughout the state. This includes, but not limited to, investments to mitigate operational issues related to geometry and operation, security concerns, and supporting truck movements. That was the first initiative. The second initiative was primarily focused on rural development. This will be deployed to transportation improvements unique to rural Georgia, specifically targeting roadway safety and broadband infrastructure and innovative solutions. So those were those 2 initiatives. And then there was the utilization of $500,000 of existing budget capacity for a road safety improvement project that was within the city of Jefferson, close to the bypass on Holder Siding Road in Old Pendergrass. Moving on to the next program, you had the capital maintenance program, and you show that reduction there. However, I mentioned that there's funds that will be supplanted back into that with the COVID relief funds. You'll see construction administration's name being changed to program delivery going forward. There was the addition of $5.5 million there, as well as the $3.5 million in departmental admin, which really truly helps the department. As you heard Russell talk about our numbers and our employment headcount, that will help us with recruitment and retention throughout the department. The LMIG component, which is the $21.6 million, like I said, was the 10% of the excise. There was also $500,000 that was put into the planning budget for one-time funding for a strategy development initiative for regional transportation planning. In routine maintenance, there was $35 million that helps restore the previous cuts that routine maintenance have had, so we can get back into doing more striping, herbicide litter pickup, the ITBs that the districts previously had to cut. This restores that. And then in the payments to CERTA program, there is a slight reduction of close to $756,000, which is really like the true enough of the debt service that we had for the time. Next slide is the GEO bond debt service component. This $19.4 million is the utilization of fees within our budget to pay debt service. So with the GEO bond debt service and motor fuel on this slide of the $125 million, with the $19 million gets us to that overall $145 million. In payments to CERTA, there was no change in payments to CERTA. Payments to the ATL, you see that program coming into our budget and being established, very similar like payments to CERTA. And then lastly is intermodal. In intermodal, there was an addition of $9.7 million, of which $7.6 million of that was the ride share fee component from House Bill 105 that was brought into the budget. So $6 million of the ride share fees are going for the rehabilitation of the MARTA Bankhead station. And then there's $1 million going toward the Athens-Clarke County Transit, with the remainder coming to the department to be dispersed throughout the other transit projects. Also, in the airport aid sub-program, there was an additional $1 million in additional state general funds. These would impact the Lumpkin County Wimpy's Airport to construct terminal building. In Moultrie at Spence Field was to rehabilitate the airfield drainage Phase 5 project. Swainsboro, it went to the East Georgia Regional to rehabilitate the apron Phase 2. In Sylvester, it went to the Sylvester Municipal Airport to construct a terminal building. And then lastly, it went to Toccoa for the R.G. Letourneau Field to replace the automated weather observing system. So that's how those additional $1 million will be utilized there. There was also $1 million that was put into the rail program for the development of a freight and logistics study. There was $50,000 that was allocated for security improvements on the Ogeechee Railroad. And then lastly, there was $75,000 for state railroad clearing at the Vidalia to the Hazelhurst line. So you can see that intermodal had a lot of activity during this budget process. And then lastly, we have the GEO bond package here. It had 12 bridge replacements. It was a $100 million bond package, of which it had 12 bridge replacements. They were in Evans County, Webster County, Fayette, Sumter, Spalding. Madison County had 2 projects, Macon, Chattooga, Elbert, Floyd, and Jefferson County. It also included 4 capital road projects that had previously, these had been deferred due to lost revenue due to COVID. The bonds gave us the ability to do these. It was State Route 9 in Forsyth, Georgia, State Route 20 in Henry, State Route 24 at US 441 Washington, and then US 27 in Troup County. Lastly, in the bond package, they allocated $12.5 million to upgrade the short line railroads to Class 2 standards. In order to do that, they have to be able to hold at least 286,000 pounds and travel at least 25 miles per hour. These funds were allocated to the Heart of Georgia, Georgia Southwestern Railroad, and Chattooga and Chickamauga. Heart of Georgia would receive a little bit over $7 million to upgrade the bridge and track between Preston and Vidalia. Georgia Southwestern Railroad would be receiving upgrades for their bridges and track between Cuthbert and Lynn. And then lastly, the $2.5 million would go to Chattooga, Chickamauga for the upgrade of bridges and track between Lowerly and Rossville. That concludes my presentation, Chairman. I would like to thank this board for your support during this legislative session. I think overall we had a great legislative session. Keep your fingers crossed, just eagerly awaiting the governor to approve the budget and sign it. I want to thank George Christensen and his staff for all their hard work and dedication throughout this whole process. I want to thank the division directors, the executive team, the office heads for their quick turnaround when we would have a question from the legislature about the budget, them turning those responses around very quickly. And then lastly, goes without saying, Josh Waller, who his tireless efforts during session, just want to make sure that I recognize him. I will be coming back, either myself or Matt Klein will be coming back before you next month for the approval of the bond package for the June bond sale. And that concludes my presentation, Chairman.
Any questions from Ms. Whitworth? Ms. Whitworth, thank you for that great work you did working with your staff over at the Legislative Committee. Y'all did an outstanding job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, both.
This time I'd ask Meg Perkle, our Chief Engineer, to come forward to give us an update on the 400 express lanes.
Good morning, Chairman Bowen, members of the board. It's really great to see everybody's
Morning.
faces here today, so it's good to be here. So I'm going to give you a quick update on MMIP projects that we have under procurement, including the Georgia 400 express lanes and a few others. So starting with the Georgia 400 express lanes, I think y'all are pretty familiar with this project by now and what it entails. You can see the project map there on the right. But we've been going through the procurement process. It was almost a little over a year ago, in February of 2020, that we issued the request for qualifications and we kicked off the procurement of this project. And in that time, throughout the pandemic, we have held countless meetings and interactions with the proposed developers. We developed the short list, and now here we are getting really close to the end of this procurement. So just wanted to give you a clue as to where we are now. In February of 2021, our environmental document was approved. This was a huge milestone and a great accomplishment for the team. In the last year, we've received over 96 alternative technical concepts. So this is when the developers propose things that are equal or better in design that will save money, and we review all of those and give feedback to the developers. We've also responded to over 1,500 proposer questions about the RFP, so lots of interaction about the RFP. We've held 24 one-on-one meetings with the developer teams, all done remotely and concurrently with these other procurements that we have going on that I'll be showing you. The RFP is a hefty 2,500 pages, so if anybody wants some, light reading, we could probably provide that later once it's public. And the final RFP was issued to the developers March 23rd, so they are now working on their proposals that they will be submitting in the next month. Right-of-way is about 20% acquired. There are 212 parcels along this corridor. 160 of those are state acquired and 52 will be acquired by the developer. So just a reminder, we do have 3 shortlisted teams that were selected last June, and that's who we've been working with for the past year to get ready for this actual opening of bids coming up. The 3 teams are listed there, and just a reminder that we are still in a cone of silence on this project. So with any of those groups who are involved in the procurement, you cannot discuss it with them. And this is just a checklist of the milestones that we've been going through on this project. As you can see, a lot of the boxes are checked. So we are getting down to the last sands in the hourglass on the 400 Express Lanes project. And I can't say enough about all the work that has gone into this, from our innovative team, our legal team, our environmental team, our PMC, HNTB, the GEC, AECOM, as well as our finance team. They've just been working tirelessly in the last year, and this project has stayed on schedule, and it's just great to see that we are really getting close. You can see at the bottom, the proposals are due from the shortlisted proposers on May 25th, so not long at all. And then we'll be announcing the selection of the best value proposer in August. There's also some time there before we get to financial close and issuing notice to proceed. And so that happens probably in the wintertime, could be December or later January, February. And that's because we have made government financing available to the selected proposer on this project. And so that will take a little time, and so we give them time to do that. So what is this government financing? So the U.S. DOT, through the Build America Bureau, offers to state, local, and private sponsors its financial assistance that will help reduce project cost and increase flexibility. So TIFIA, which stands for Transportation Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act, this TIFIA program allows credit assistance loans for qualified projects of regional and national significance. The benefits of a TIFIA loan are that it's a low interest rate, the interest doesn't accrue until the proceeds are drawn down, it has flexible amortization, and no prepayment penalty. So many large-scale surface transportation projects are eligible for TIFIA, and this credit assistance is available at more advantageous terms than in the financial market. So it's really important for projects like this. So GDOT and CERTA applied to the Build America Bureau to ensure that our project is eligible and that all the terms are set, making it easier for the successful proposer to take advantage of these tools in a timely manner prior to financial close. Private activity bonds is another way that the Build America Bureau makes government financing available to these type of projects. These are tax-exempt bonds. The law limits the amount of bonds that are available for these kind of projects to about $15 billion, and the Secretary of Transportation actually allocates 2 projects. So receiving our allocation of PABs for this project is a really big deal because it's important to reserve our allocation of PABs in what is still available by law. So we've received $503 million of our provisional bond allocation from US DOT, and can't thank our innovative finance team, Selena, enough, and our financial advisors for their efforts to get to this. This was a big lift. It's almost like dealing with another proposer, all the meetings they had to have with Build America Bureau to get ready for these. So very exciting. So you'll be getting an update on Georgia 400 in a few months when we get past all those final milestones. So another big project for MMIP that we have under procurement now is the I-285, I-20 East Interchange. I know we gave an update on this project last year, and we showed you the video and talked about the public information meetings that we had held. But I just wanted to provide a quick update because we are currently under procurement with this project. We're also going through the process of reviewing alternative technical concepts and holding one-on-ones with the developer teams. So this is now all underway, and we'll be issuing the final request for proposals on this project in this quarter of the year, in the next couple of months. This project also has 3 shortlisted teams. They were shortlisted last November, and you can see the teams that are listed there. And again, we are in a cone of silence with this project as well. But lots of people involved and interested in our projects. If you recall, about a year and a half ago when I gave you an update on the MMIP, I talked about projects that we were breaking out called the Advanced Improvement Projects. And these are basically 6 projects that we broke out of the big 285 express lanes for a couple of reasons. One was to get some short wins on congestion relief, but also to get some of the heavier work and bridge work done and out of the way, which makes the larger project easier to deliver when we get to that point. So 2 of those projects, we call them our AIP projects, Advanced Improvement Projects, are design build, and they have been let in the last couple of months. So I want to give you an update on those as well. The first is the I-285 at Peachtree Industrial Boulevard Interchange Project, and this provides some improvements there to the exit at I-285 to Peachtree Industrial Boulevard. The construction will start in 2021. It was let in February and awarded to E.R. Snell and Atlas. This is design build. And this project will provide some definite congestion relief right there at that interchange, and will also make some make-ready work better for when we're building the 285 express lanes. And the other AIP project that was just let on April 1st, this project is the East Side Bridge replacement. So it's 3 bridges that have to be widened to allow for the express lanes on 285. So right now, this will just replace those bridges. This construction will start in 2021. It was awarded to Archer Western and ICE as their design firm, and notice to proceed is expected in June. And one of the great things about this procurement is the awarded team is going to save us about 509 days in the schedule from what we had anticipated would take. They came up with some innovative ways to get this work done. So very happy to see that successful award there. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Meg. Great, that's a great, projects that we're having before us, and it's exciting to see all this coming to reality. Okay, at this time now, we'll have, Janine Miller. She's coming forward with the STIP for 20 and 24.
Good morning, everybody. Oh my gosh, it is so good to see you all here. Is it still morning? Whew, it's been a long day so far, hasn't it? I am going to talk as fast as I can, although I am not motor mouth John Moshida. I will not be able to talk 500 words a minute, but I will be quick, since this is something you all are quite familiar with. It's the statewide transportation improvement program, fiscal 21 through 24. Of course, you all know this includes all the federally funded projects, plus the match that's required. In order for us to spend federal dollars at GDOT, we have to have a STIP updated on the books, approved by the federal government, that is fiscally constrained. We've done a lot of involvement, including with you all and the general public. I want you to see we've had some really impressive activities over the course of the past month. We've reached 1.7 million Georgians through 146 radio stations. And another neat point here, I think, is 9,600 views of the video. Thanks to Natalie Dale for that. So folks were picking up our video about the STIP and what we're doing here in Georgia via YouTube, because as you can see on the right side there, we had 1,360 sessions on our website. So that's people actually going around tinkering, spending a little bit of time there in our website. So people were finding that video through other means. So very good stuff. Social media also had, we've reached people and had impressions, and those are social media terms that I'm not familiar with, but we've reached out to a lot of folks, which is important because we're spending $10.3 billion of taxpayer money. This is a little bit more than half of this is federal, 2.9 billion is state, and 1.85 billion is local. I want you to know that there are about 800 rural projects and about 530 metro area projects in this STIP. Of course, we incorporate the TIPs, or the transportation improvement programs, from the MPOs. If I can talk just a moment, though, about the rural statistics, I think this is exciting. We're adding approximately 250 rural lane miles. These are additional lanes or new builds, replacing 232 bridges. And in the transit space, which is predominantly federal, $171 million in operations and capital. Of course, we coordinate very closely with other state agencies with that work, and thanks to Carol's team over at Intermodal for administering all that. But the return on investment, I think, is pretty exciting. Newly to be able to report to you, I think here in this STIP, we've got nearly 1 billion fewer hours of delay, billions of dollars saved in travel time, reduced cost to operate vehicles, and even improved carbon emissions, or reduced carbon emissions as a result. And economically, over the course of the 30 years, a cumulative 69,000 jobs, $5.5 billion in personal income, and $7.3 billion in gross state product. This is the result of impressive and proper investments in our transportation network that unleashes and continues to grow our economy. So I'm hoping for your approval today of this STIP, and we will get started once again with the next round of STIP after this, but would happy to entertain any questions you may have.
Are you asking for a motion for the approval?
Yes.
Janine, is that correct?
Yes, Chairman.
So moved.
We have a motion and we have an approval, a second. Any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you, it's approved.
Fantastic.
Yes.
We're going to send that over to Federal Highways. I have to give some big thanks to our planning team, if I might just take a moment here, for all the work that they've done. Kelly Gwynn is here with us. Kelly, can you stand up for us? She's an incredible leader within the planning office and here at GDOT. 15-year veteran. She led the SSTP as well, and now she's leading our rural office. Delighted to have her leadership. Other folks on her team who really pushed this forward, Robbie Caudill, Andy Torrey, our other branch chiefs as well, Tom Kayaffa, Vivian Delgado Canizares, and Habdi Casa led the technical team of Trey Provo and Daniel Dolder. Obviously, we have assistant office heads who've been with us for a long time. Radney Simpson is here with us, Charles Robinson, Tom McQueen, who we all know very well. And then lastly, leading us all over the past several months and leading us into the future, our Deputy Director of Planning, Matt Markham, is here, and Kathy Zahel. So thank you to all of them, and thank you to you.
Thank you. Ann, do you have a question?
I don't have a question, but I want to ditto what Ms. Miller has just said. The team has worked very diligently. I have been involved just a smidget in regards to what's going on, but I want to say thank you from the board, from our board members, because contacted to them likewise, but the team has done a magnificent job here, so congratulations on all the work.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Okay, Mr. Lewis, are you going to, okay, Commissioner, if you would please, on the comprehensive zoning resolution.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'll just do it from here. We have a request for outdoor advertising sign rezoning approval from Bartow County. It's along State Route 293, and as I remind you, GDOT reviews zoning requests to make sure they're in compliance with the state law. We do not approve city or county zoning. We simply review them to make sure they're in compliance. Our staff has reviewed the application package from Bartow County, and based on the review, we recommend approval of Bartow County Comprehensive Rezoning Plan. And the land use appears reasonable and logical, and there's no evidence of strip or spot zoning. It's what we usually look for. I put that in, ask for a favorable approval.
Okay, have a motion for this approval? We have a motion to so move. Do we have a second? We have a second. Any questions? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 We have one abstention. Mr. Lewis? Motion carried. Okay, under new business, I have one item I would like to present under new business. I have a public announcement that the board will consider changing the commissioner's salary to $450,000 per year at its regularly scheduled meeting in May. Any other new business? If not, I have a motion to approve, to adjourn. Oh, great. Great. We have a motion second, and everybody is in favor. Let's see you next month. Thank you.
Thank you.